Hello and welcome to the first HorseToast. Oh my god, I'm already messing up. HorseToast DeathGarden podcast. I'm your host, Poncha. Joining me is Phoenix Echelon.
Hello.
And joining me as well is MonkeyBot.
Hello.
So, first things first, I thought I'd just give us a brief introduction about each of us, really. I'm a nobody, really, but all of us here have had experience playing asymmetric games. Many of you may know a game called Evolve. We were MonkeyBot was a pro player in that game when it first came out. Then later, me and Phoenix basically joined him, and we became a pro team in Evolve Stage 2, for those of you that know what that is. But currently, of course, we've moved on to DeathGarden, and just to give you a little bit of background about our DeathGarden, we've probably already all of us have probably got over about 100 hours in the game.
Yeah, a couple hundred altogether.
Yeah, Phoenix is already career level 30 for runner. He's a runner main. MonkeyBot's also a sort of hunter and runner sort of guy, but I play a lot of hunter and I also play a lot of runner. But I guess just to prove to you guys that Phoenix is a career level 30 runner, so he definitely knows what he's talking about. He's played the game probably more than most people in the game. But the reason we are making this podcast is because we've had experience playing asymmetric games. We've started playing DeathGarden, and an asymmetric game is quite a rare thing to come in the gaming industry. And if that game needs help or support, it's definitely worth trying to get it to it. And we're here just to give feedback to the devs and possibly just give our own sort of impressions on the game and what needs to change. Of course, I am saying that we are in no way qualified in saying that what we say should happen in the game. We're just simply giving some feedback to the devs, trying to help them out in any way we can. So, gentlemen, I think the first question that we're going to be talking about, it's very broad. Is the game balanced?
I'm going to say no.
No.
So we got...
Still has a way ahead of it.
There's quite a few issues at the moment. I wouldn't say it's like there's not one side which is more powerful than the other. There's just certain abilities on both sides which just needs adjusting, shall we say.
Yeah.
I can kind of concur with that. I mean, I believe that the game as well is not balanced, and asymmetric is always one of these harder things to balance in a game because both sides are not exactly the same. You've got one side that's probably more powerful at a early level in the game, and then of course the other side, well, especially in DeathGarden, you have the runners that are very weak at the start and basically have to get upgrades in order to power up. Now, I suppose that in a game like DeathGarden, it's never going to be properly balanced simply because asymmetric, I don't think you can ever possibly balance an asymmetric
because that's
game.
the definition of asymmetry.
Well, yeah, I guess that is true, but...
but the problem is when individual skill comes into place where people either have to make up with 5 disorganized and sloppy players in a team having a super hard time against the hunter, or an organized team where the hunter is having a really hard time against the runners.
Yeah, and it's definitely true. And I think the problem especially with an asymmetric game, is that because DeathGarden is made by the same developers that make Dead by Daylight, Dead by Daylight, and one thing that I can't stress enough is that Dead by Daylight seems to be fun, even if it's not balanced.
Yeah.
In DeathGarden, the game isn't like fun if it's not balanced.
I feel like the main reason for this, though, is the massive team play element within DeathGarden. I haven't played Dead by Daylight. I've seen a few videos, but by watching Dead by Daylight, it seems a lot more individual to the survivors.
It is.
And by DeathGarden, you need to rely on your teammates to be able to escape if you are in contact with the hunter. It's so much more team orientated, which is quite scary, actually, to people who have never played asymmetrical games, who aren't used to proper teamwork. This is where our Evolve experience comes into play, because it's the same thing.
No.
Yeah.
You need good teammates to be able to do well against good hunters. That's just a fact. you're never going to win on your own. So,
yeah, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I think that's one of the problems with DeathGarden is they've sold it as this sort of casual, sort of Dead by Daylight game, and that is not the right approach they should be taking to the game. They should really sell this as a hardcore gamers game, where basically it's for those who really understand how games need to be played. You need teamwork in this game. Yep. You can't, I mean, only as playing as the hunter can you sort of have that sort of fun experience when you first get in and sort of like, kill some people, but as you rank up or you play against good players, you start to realize that this isn't a game that you can sort of casually play. You actually have to really focus, and if you miss a headshot on somebody, that's going to count. Like that person can get away and possibly get upgrades, and then the tides are against you.
No.
So,
shall we start talking about like individual abilities which we think needs changing?
Well, yeah. So let me just say this first. So what, in both of your opinions, when we didn't actually clarify what we in which side we thought was more powerful. So personally, this is from my experience. I think the runner side, of course, is the more powerful side currently in DeathGarden. That is still argued from the recent balanced changes have come in, of course, which has sort of shifted the balance again back towards the hunter side. But that's my opinion. What about you two?
No, I totally agree. Also, people would say that hunters are overpowered, but that's obviously it's the team play element again. If you're in a team, hunters are definitely the weaker side. But if you're playing solo, then the hunters are going to win nearly every game. So
we're currently in a state where really good hunters evidently have winning streaks of hundreds of games with losses in the single digits, and the only way to get a chance against those skilled people is by playing an organized team on communications where everybody carries their own weight. Having a chance against someone like that as a pickup group with random people is pretty much impossible. So that's currently a state where we're in, and with the recent changes having it made a lot harder for the runners, these kinds of skilled hunters, which solely rely on their own skill and no team play and whatnot, they're having a lot of an easier time. I do agree with a lot of the changes we've had recently to get the runners' aggression against the hunters a bit in check, but
because there were a lot of moments with the team that we play with where we would just sit around bullying a hunter.
But come on, let's be honest. That was an issue of us being seasoned players being put up against free-to-play newcomers.
Yeah. I mean,
but that shouldn't be able to happen either way.
Yeah, and then they got the whole telemetry from the free-to-play week, and they've seen, oh shit, hunters are having a hard time because they're getting put up against premates all the time, and rage quit.
I think we're definitely on the right tracks here. I mean, talking about how the matchmaking is and how it's basically bringing this free weekend in has basically shown people a very bad side of the game, because you're finding that a lot of the new hunters that have come in, they've sort of like gone up against a really good runner team that's probably already been in the alpha and beta, and it's not exactly been unfair on them. And then exactly the same for the runner side. You've got them coming in on the free weekend, playing against hunters that have been playing since the alpha and beta, and basically just experienced total carnage and not being able to do anything. But Phoenix, I didn't actually get out of you. What do you think it's hunter-sided then currently right now in the game?
I haven't played too much hunter to properly get an assessment on its side, but like I say, it's currently really hard against good hunters to do anything.
Yeah, that's understandable. So let's go on to, I mean, let's talk about the runner side, since we're all runner players already, basically, and we've played a lot of runners. So let's talk about what we think is overpowered right now. What on the runner side? I mean, if there is anything, we can say that. But is there anything on the runner side that we feel definitely is overpowered and needs to be changed? Control. So I haven't played a lot of Control. So what? I mean, I know you're a Control main. So what is it about Control that really sort of like?
I mean, I've started off as a Torment main and had my fair share of hundreds of matches with that, and now playing Control a lot recently made me see how easy it is to harass the hunter with Control's abilities, and how dodgy it can be to take down a Control as a hunter. because some of its synergies and abilities are just very powerful and might need a little bit of tweaking. Like, for example, the constant stuns that you can throw out as a control is very powerful, because the immunity on the hunter, the cooldown's very short. Degen is obviously very powerful, which gives you a 50% damage reduction from the hunter side, and that lets you tank so much, combined with a good medic, and even with the whole heal situation we have now, it makes control very powerful.
I can kind of agree. I think the stun is one of the stun and the slow are two of the abilities that are very powerful, and I think
not even the slow as much. I mean, slow has a decent immunity cooldown on it, so you can't just spam it on the hunter, and the hunter can still work quite well around a slow in most cases. But stun comes back so quickly, you can really throw out stuns like crazy. And like I said, Degen, the damage reduction maybe could go down from 50% to something closer to maybe 35.
So is it you feel like it's the stun that should be changed then?
The immunity on stun, so you can't stun the hunter as often anymore. I'm just talking about a slight adjustment of maybe a second more on the resistance cooldown for the hunter.
So you think because if for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, when you use an ability on the hunter in DeathGarden, there is a little cooldown timer on the top right which you can see, which basically lets you know when you can use that ability again. And
when the hunter gets affected by that ability again.
Yeah, when the hunter gets attacked by that ability, basically it goes on another cooldown again, and and basically I think what Phoenix is trying to say is that should be longer. I assume that's what you're trying to say. Yeah, it should be longer before you can stun again. And I can kind of agree with that. I mean, there are a lot of abilities that I feel like, that basically can be shot at you and you're basically almost immobilized. But recently there has been a change to the MPI, and that has made it so it's a little bit harder for runners to sort of use their abilities more consistently. I can't actually see the patch notes. Can you read out what the MPI changes?
Where are they?
Yeah, I've got them open on the Discord.
You read them up then.
Pretty much the NPI Bolt, which is a support ability to share MPI and boost MPI generated amongst the teammates, has been changed in a way where the duration of it has been reduced from 40 seconds to 15 seconds. Well as the MPI bonus you got was 100% before, and now it's 20%. So in my opinion, I agree with the change to lower the rate of NPI that you get, but the duration reduction has pretty much made the ability useless.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I have literally only played support. I played support a lot in this game. Like it's like they said, 100 hours, and I've literally just played support. I completely agree with taking it down to 20%. But the reduced duration, gone down to 15, the MPI share has basically become useless because you're never going to be sharing with anyone. The only time that would become useful is the BloodPost, which I believe we need to talk about the BloodPost a lot because there's a lot of things that need to be changed with the BloodPost.
Yes, yeah.
But the 15 seconds is just useless unless you get the entire team so you can shoot everyone with one arrow. The share will never take an effect. You may be able to share with one person, but you're never going to get the MPI back. So you're spending more MPI than you're actually creating yourself. Because it's a big problem at the moment.
Before you were pretty much playing kind of a support role where you would get the MPI share going on yourself, and then you had a 40-second time window to progress the map a bit, look for other teammates, and get the MPI share on them as well. But now, that 15-second time window pretty much makes it impossible to get the MPI share on you and maybe another one or two people before it already ran out.
So let's go into more of the mechanics of the game right now, because there are a few things that I feel like make the game very sort of unbalanced, but not because of either side. These are more like things to do with the actual game. So one thing that like, for example, the game Evolve that we played, there was a time limit always in the game. In DeathGarden, there is no time limit for the game. You can basically spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes as a runner, taking your time, hiding in bushes, and not making a move until the hunter basically goes away from you.
Yeah, you can effectively hijack a game.
And it's really, well, exactly, and basically it's up to the hunter to get pure luck finding you in a bush in order to basically find you. Now, do you feel like that should be something to change? Do you think DeathGarden for runners should have a time limit? Basically, the game ends in 10 minutes unless they cap the objectives? Or do you feel like the actual idea that, you know, the game should be like hide and seek, it should be a game that's long, it shouldn't, of course, basically be down to the runners being pressured into doing something, or the hunter side could have a time limit basically saying execute all runners within 10 minutes, otherwise you lose the match.
If the timer was going to be on any side, I think it would have to be the runners. I think it would have to be the runners. Because the only way the game ends is if the runners get aggressive. If they hide constantly, the hunter's never going to find anyone. So the runners need to...
Yeah, but at the same time, that's kind of a goal, one of your objectives, to hide as effectively as possible. Because the very beginning on, you're very weak as a runner, and the earlier you get discovered, the likelier it is for you to end up dying. So pretty much the early game belongs to the hunter, and the late game more and more belongs to the runner. Which is okay, in my opinion. That's kind of how a asymmetrical curve should go.
Well, this is something that I was just going to bring up, and like this is another change that I was thinking. So, if we weren't going to change the time limit on basically how long the game should be, because I personally love the idea of basically a runner not having to be pressured. Because when we used to play Evolve, when you had to hunt the monster, you felt like the time was always against you. Also, as a monster, the time limit was against you, but in Evolve Stage 2, the time limit was always kind of with you. However, in DeathGarden, you know, you never have to be pressured. So one thing that the devs could change to make the game more kind of like basically to do with that time limit is that for basically runners, in order for them to get upgrades, or not get upgrades, I mean, for them to basically get upgraded and get, like, you know, better abilities, it takes longer for them. So have upgrade crates take longer to recharge, or have it so that they have to have more upgrade points in order to get an ability.
I'm not sure.
That would just cause people to just hide in the bush for much longer.
That's true.
The only way, like ideally, and it's quite easy to do, if you have some smart runners, you can literally get every single upgrade before the hunter even finds you. Like,
that's
you just
true.
have to hide in
which
a bush.
Pretty much is your goal as a runner, trying to get as many upgrades as you can before you start going for objectives, or before you get discovered by the hunter.
So I believe there needs to be more pressure on the runners early game, but I don't think.
When you say pressure, do you mean like hunter pressuring on the runners? Do you mean like the hunter should have a better way of finding the runners? Or when you mean pressure, do you mean like, as we said, like a time limit?
Not a time. I don't think it should be a time limit. Yeah, I suppose you can hack everything. Like, that's one way to find.
Well, that's actually not true.
I was thinking of something to counter the hijacking thing, where pretty much you have some kind of external pressure, not coming from the hunter, but from the game itself, not forcing you, but encouraging you to do objectives and get into action. Because we've had the same problem in Evolve, where the monsters would just hide through the entire game until the curve favored them, and they were strong enough to turn the match around. But in the meantime, it was a boring match for both of them, because each side kept avoiding the other, or was chasing the other.
Basically, the exciting bit is the action. It's when the hunter is chasing the runner, and you want to be doing that as much as possible, but keep it balanced.
I think this was one problem that there was with Evolve, was that the monster could never engage the runner. Sorry, getting confused now. The monster could never engage the hunters at stage 1 or even stage 2 in Legacy. In Evolve Stage 2, they changed that. So maybe in the game like DeathGarden, maybe, because this is the thing, this is why it's a very hard game, because runners, even if you gave the runners more power at the start, it's not going to incent them to sort of go and attack the hunter. And like they could, so it doesn't really work in a sense that like you can't force runners to fight. There's nothing you can do about that. Unless it's a BloodPost engagement, you can't force runners to go and attack the hunter. So giving the runners more power in the early game and basically giving them a fighting chance doesn't sort of encourage that gameplay either.
I agree, unfortunately.
And it's sad to say that, but it is one of those things that you can't really change. It's like runners are going to hide no matter what you do.
Yeah.
There'd have to be more of an incentive to go and do something that's risky.
Unless it's something to do with the upgrade posts. If you spend a certain amount of upgrade points on upgrade posts, you get revealed, even if it's hacked or not. I don't know whether that's something they could do. Just so it's
for example, something along those
again,
lines.
For an evolve, when you would evolve to another stage, you would get a massive roar, and you know exactly the right direction. Or maybe it's simple as a sound effect. It doesn't even have to be a highlight.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Maybe every time an upgrade station is interacted with, you get a massive horn that goes off, just so you can see that the runners are getting more powerful. Just something to give the hunters a little.
I like that,
a little
because
edge.
that would be good
for. A timer is a good thing. Timer pressure is not necessarily worth it.
It shouldn't. I like that, because that's also very good for new players, because if a new player doesn't know where because especially against a good team, a new player hunter's never going to find runners. So even like a nice little sound cue like that could definitely help them, especially like how, as you said, in Evolve, when you had the roar, it sort of gave that incentive. Well, it gave that sort of direction to the noob hunters where to go. But in a game like DeathGarden, that could definitely work, because then it basically requires the runner team to be coordinated, understand that when you use that outpost, or not outpost, I'm getting confused. What's it called? Upgrade station. You need to be careful.
You know how there's a call out for the hunter when he actually reaches max upgrades?
I have never heard that.
Yeah. It's something like the announcer saying hunter has reached max power or something when he picked up enough upgrades. So the runners get made aware of that. So in return, for example, like Monkibot said, something revealing, for example, could be whenever you upgrade an ability as a runner to the max, it could sound a horn, for example, from that spire. On the one hand, that would get the whole game more active without having just hide and seek throughout the entire game, where you cycle a couple of crates and upgrade yourself to max while nothing is happening because the hunt is just looking for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we should probably move on to something else now. Like we have been talking about this particular subject. I mean, like we could chat about. I mean, one thing that I know that we could go back on talk. I mean, there's. Any of you have another idea for runner changes, like anything that you think a runner should have changed to them? Like you talked about control.
Compass, maybe? We could have talked about compass.
That's definitely something we've been talking about. We wanted added to the game. Basically, we want a compass in the game just to call out directions, because in DeathGarden, it's very hard to tell a mate of yours or a friend, where a upgrade station is.
Hey, which way is Charlie?
Exactly. Which way is Charlie?
Over,
that way.
Yeah.
Somewhere, I'm facing the way. Just look the way I'm facing.
Yeah.
It's very awkward.
A compass would be very nice to the game, because then you can call out to your friend who's northeast, or something south,
southwest, stuff
exactly.
like that. That would be so helful. That's just a tiny little
quality of life thing. Yeah.
Any other
quite nice.
Any other changes to the runners that you think, could possibly balance the game, just make it a little bit more, something that you might think needs buffing, something that you might needs nerfing.
I want to quickly add something, because I read through the patch notes again. Apparently they did change the degenerate bolt from control from 50% damage reduction to 40. And I'll have to take a look at that in-game to see how it performs. But it's already a good change, as well as the duration being lowered a bit on it. I think generally they're good. They're going into the right direction with their changes. It's just not the right numbers in many cases yet.
Yeah. It's a very, as I said, we always said an asymmetric game is very hard to balance, especially a game like this where there are so many options you can choose from, so many different. There's quite a lot of versatility in DeathGarden. There's so many different combinations of perks. Well, not
and
classes,
such a broad spectrum of
Exactly,
skill.
and I think the problem is that one thing. I mean, taking into consideration just the abilities, certain abilities counter other things better. And like, for example, like you were saying, revealing people, like the ability that the hunter has that reveals people. I think you said, what's it called? I see you.
Yeah.
I see you. That ability, very good in the game when you're trying to chase down hunters or basically
Runners.
I'm getting confused again. Yeah, runners in the game, trying to find them. However, at the BloodPost, it may not also be your best ability. You may want Fade, you may want sentry guns to cover your back and alert you where hunters are, and it can really screw you. Now, one thing that I think about runners that I think definitely needs to be changed, and you guys may disagree, but from personal experience as playing as a hunter player, I find that if every single runner has quick revive, it is almost impossible for me to stop them at the BloodPost.
Yeah, the BloodPost does need some sort of change. Like, so many times where Phoenix against good hunters has been able to solo a BloodPost to save someone. It's
still a very hard task to do.
Oh yeah, like it's not easy. But it
depends on your setup. As a control, it's a lot easier, but as a torment at least, or as a support, it's very hard to do even with the right setup.
So many issues, to be honest. But
I mean, like,
and don't forget, just because you're having a hard time because they're having quick rescue means that they're giving up one perk slot for potentially other very good abilities. Obviously, it's a very good strategy to go with something like quick rescue for BloodPost, but then again, we have very popular hunters like going for bleed out strats. They're not even going for BloodPost executions that much as trying to take down runners over and over again and having them bleed out. Because every time you go down, it takes a big chip off your bleed out health, and after a couple of deaths, you're going to have a pretty hard time as runners getting each other up again because you're under such a high pressure.
You see, I find... Sorry, go on.
I do think that quick rescue needs to be slowed down. I don't think it should... Like, there's some hunters out there that said it should be removed. I don't think it should be removed.
No.
But I feel like it may need to be slowed down just a little bit. Sometimes I feel like it is a little bit fast.
I mean, I think there's definitely as far as I'm aware, you can definitely save somebody from a BloodPost compared to the execution from a hunter. So, if you both... I mean, this is something we'll have to test, but I'm almost certain that if a hunter and a runner with quick revive both use the BloodPost at the same time, the runner's always going to beat the hunter in that sort of idea. And this is why I find it very hard when I'm on the BloodPost as a hunter and you have like 4 guys come on and like, don't forget I'm being stunned and slowed and everything like that. If all of them are interacting and running around this damn thing, other than the ability where I can stun them all, there's nothing I can really do to kill all of them. I may get them down, and that's definitely not bad, but for example, when one of them goes down and they get the guy off the BloodPost, it only takes, as you said, a support roll just to revive him. This is why I'm still getting stunned and blind and they're away again.
But what about an end game where you only have 3 runners left, 2 of them being support and control being on BloodPost?
Then support is the only... Support can't do
just
anything.
Statistically seen by then, just looking at the numbers of how long it takes you to execute somebody versus somebody with a quick rescue. If it's a medic which has no chance to interrupt and they both start at the same time, you basically have no chance without quick rescue.
I think something to do with, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but does the supercharger increases interaction time, doesn't it?
Yeah, generally, but not with the BloodPost.
But not with the BloodPost.
No.
See, I don't know whether that should be an option.
It would be a nice buff. It would be a nice buff.
You can always get rid of the supercharge if
you've got to remember.
The question will be by how much, because obviously it would be a trade-off between the energy that the hunter has to spend to interact quicker with it versus the energy he can spend to melee and get somebody else off of it. Yeah.
And you've got to remember that runners can use viruses as well.
Yeah,
I mean, so you've got to think about all the abilities that the runners can use at their disposal.
I know,
when they're at the
but thinking
BloodPost.
about all eventualities and possibilities is really hard because, like I said before, you then again have to think about combinations of endgame runs with just 3 runners left and not having optimal perks. Because depending on how long stuff takes, it's already a lost game to say, okay, we only have 3 runners and none of us has quick rescue, therefore getting somebody on BloodPost is definitely a loss.
No, I agree with that. So let's move on to something else now.
Yeah.
Then this is another topic that I've wanted to talk about, and I know I have chat with you both about this. Is the game modes. Now, I know that hunters, or especially hunters, feel that the key mode game mode is the one that's runner sided. Greatly.
Yeah.
And I can definitely agree with that. I think we can all agree that the key mode game mode definitely needs some changes. I mean, I don't know what changes. If any of you got any suggestions, feel free to take over.
Pointing out the simple fact that there are 3 objectives, and to each of the objectives side there is a key in between the objective, and basically that means there's 3 objectives and about 5 keys, and
I don't know.
Pretty much when there's 3 runners taking a key at the same time, everybody running either clockwise or counterclockwise, and the person who the hunter is going for drops the key and the other 2 insert the key. There's nothing a hunter can do effectively because you can't be at all places at once. And as long as a hunter doesn't take down anybody because the runners are messing up, there's nothing a hunter can effectively do.
Yeah. I think the reason that keys is so runner favored is that it's the only game modes that you don't need all 5 players to really be effective.
Coordinate.
You can with keys you can still do it with 3 people and you can still win. Like there has been games with just the 3 of us and we've actually sacrificed the other 2 because they just kept dying.
Yep.
And we have still won games against good hunters.
Because we did exactly what I just mentioned before.
You just get one person and it goes round. You don't need the full team to do well. When there's in control, you can have one person on a point, but you're not going to cap it if you're the only one doing it because it's so slow.
And because you have to stick to it a lot longer.
I don't know whether you should have just maybe one key.
Actually, this is actually a very good point.
Of the map, and then you choose which one it goes to. I don't know whether you should change it like that.
What about it should be where if one key is taken, the other 2 keys can't be taken? So basically,
or just 2 keys at the same time at most. Or having 2 randomly spawned key locations, or having randomly spawned key locations where there's only 2 keys active at a time. Because if you have only one, it would make the hunter spawn camp the locations as too much.
There is another way you could possibly change it. How about if you can color code them? So there's a key that has to go to a certain point, like say red key to red point, green key to green point, something like that. So you can't just pick up a key and then go to any point. So
that would make it harder. Yeah, that would definitely make it harder.
If there's one post, say there's a yellow post which is maxed out, you know that the hunter knows, right, I don't need to protect the yellow key anymore, I need to focus on the other 2.
No.
It's like it's sort of balance it out to control, because in control, if there's a point that's mastered, you don't need to be anywhere near that because that's not a threat anymore. They've already completed it.
That's a really good idea because I can agree with that, because especially with the RNG in the game where basically everything's randomly generated, there have been instances where basically keys and points have spawned very, very close to each other, and getting the key to the post is extremely quick. But with the color coding system, and basically if you've got a key on one side that's purple and the post that you need to get to is purple, which is purple, is on the other side of the map, then that could lead to some really good game play as well.
Because you'll have to do teamwork for that. You'll have to get people stunning, slowing the hunters down. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do that solo. No way.
And that gives the hunter definitely a chance to catch up. Because there's been instances where the hunter has used all his stamina, and then a key gets taken, and it's basically like, there's no chance I'm getting there. There's no chance I'm getting over to get that runner. No. So I might as well just focus on something else. So that would definitely be a good thing added to the game. I think that's a really good idea. I hope the devs implement that, because that would definitely balance the game.
I literally just came out on the spot.
Yeah, that's really good actually, because then it would make the key game mode seem more like a key game mode then, because it'd be like you've got to take the right lock, key to the right lock sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked about the game mode. I mean, that's definitely a good way to balance the key game mode, in my opinion.
Control, I think, is quite balanced. To be fair, I don't think they don't need to change much with control, really.
Let's talk about, if you're both finished on this subject, let's talk about the hunter now, because we haven't actually spoken about what we feel like needs to be balanced, or if it's too powerful or underpowered. And for my personal experience of playing hunter, I thought Fade was the shit. Like, I played Fade. I was basically cloaking, running up to players and just insta-shotting them with a shotgun. Of course, the shotgun nerf came in. Didn't notice that at first. I found, well, it wasn't even a nerf. It was more of a bug fix. I didn't notice that at
kill
first.
Fix. Yep.
But now I've noticed that even playing with Fade against really good runners. Yeah, runners. Thank you. Basically, it doesn't help me enough. Like, I've started to realize why people take mines, because mines actually
give you a lot more control.
Yes, it does. It definitely makes the runners have to think about what they're doing. As cloak, if the guy gets especially gets a good runner team, they can easily see the outline if I get a reveal on me. And it's basically like I'm useless. I mean, other than taking the abilities off me, it doesn't really help me in any way.
The only thing that I would say about Fate, it needs buffing in some ways, but I think it also needs nerfing in other ways.
Yes,
it's a glass cannon, basically. That's what I feel like Fade is. If you are invisible and you then shoot someone and you're still invisible, you can't really see where the hunter is. I think that's a bit broken. Like, you're just constantly running around. You have no idea where he is. You just sort of see some bullets flying and you're trying to work out where he is.
No.
If you're completely invisible, and obviously this doesn't include reveal or whatever it's called. It's reveal, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. If the hunter shoots while invisible, I think that should break the Fade.
Yeah, I've paid a bit attention to the hunter recently when he shoots during Fade, and it seems like he gets slightly revealed, which looks a bit similar to
he does
to when you tag him with a reveal bolt from Torment, but it's still very hard to make out where you're getting attacked from, and as soon as he stops shooting, it's pretty much 100% invisibility, and you don't know whether he's standing right on top of your face or not, or if you're effectively out of chase.
I think that needs to break Fade completely. I don't know how they're going to buff it, because obviously,
it's a hard
weird one. Like, Invis is always hard to balance. It always is. Like in any game, like
especially in a game that's asymmetric.
Yeah. Again, I mean, go back to Evolve. They got rid of the cloak, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, Lazarus was the only one left with it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a hard thing. So, I mean, we understand. I mean, I think Fade is a very hard area to balance. I don't think, personally, we can in any way decide what's the right thing. So, I mean, from my experience, I think mines are possibly one of the best balanced things in the game right now.
I think mines and reveal have had, like, a hidden... They haven't been buffed, but it's kind of like a...
They have a very high potential with a lot of people, which a lot of people don't see at first.
They're a safe pick.
I think they've had like a hidden buff, like since the others of like the MPI nerf has come in, because obviously reveal, like we were saying, I think we sort of said this before the podcast about the reveal lasting 10 seconds and you just run out of MPI before.
Oh, you mean an indirect buff because
indirect
of
buff, that's what I'm talking about. An indirect buff. So it's reveal has been indirectly buffed and mine have been indirectly buffed because you need that MPI to deal with them both, but you don't have the MPI to do it anymore. Which is why I feel like, going back to the MPI change, the MPI share change, is why that needs to be 40 seconds and not 15. Because in the late game, you need to deal with that. In the early game, fair enough, because you're not strong enough.
No.
But in the late game, you need to have a counter to it. And at the moment, with having no MPI... If you hide a mine in a bush, you're just randomly shooting until you can hit it. So you need the MPI to just do that burst damage and get rid of them.
Yeah, the biggest issue in that context, I really think, is ICU, the hunter's ability, which reveals you and keeps you marked for about 11 seconds, I believe. And with the current NPI situation we have on the runner side, you pretty much, if the hunter can aim, you're pretty much dead because you don't have enough NPI gain or ways to gain NPI to effectively get away once you're marked.
Especially against a good hunter that can aim, you are guaranteed to die, and I can definitely concur with that. So, I mean, we've talked about the mines. I mean, personally, we've all had our different feelings on mines. I think, as you said, the MPI changes are the things that are really making these abilities more powerful. Sentry guns,
I think
however,
sentry guns are actually the most balanced ability. I think.
What do you think about that, Phoenix? Do you agree with that?
They deal quite a lot of damage. They give a really good tactical advantage to the hunter if the runners don't take them out. It takes quite a couple of shots or NPI usage to take out the turret, so it's quite of a trade-off to deal with turrets from the runner side, and they give quite of an advantage to the hunter. So yeah, I think they're quite balanced, because the main issue is like stupid hunters, let's say, placing the turrets into stupid places where the whole team of runners just takes them down in 5 seconds because everybody starts shooting them. That's one side, but then on the other side, having to do a BloodPost against a hunter who did his turrets well is pretty much a suicide act,
I think,
suicide squad.
I think when we're playing runners, we've always coordinated and like worked out what the hunter's abilities are, and we've always sort of prepared for it. For example, when we know the hunter's taking mines or sentry guns, we always sort of say get up on ammo, like make sure you've got ammo, because then if as soon as he puts a sentry gun down or a mine down, you know pretty much we can almost kill it. And I think that's what sentry gun. I mean,
but that's kind of how it's supposed to be. If both sides play it well, it actually is balanced. The turrets do what they do. They are effective. They're not too strong, not too weak. Both sides can deal with it or use it effectively.
You can escape from them. They don't really, insta kill you. You've got time. You can see them deploying, so you've got plenty of time to react. And they aren't like an insta kill thing. So we've talked about the hunter's abilities. Let's talk about a few of his weapons. Now we all know I can't know the name of it. I mean, if any of you have the name available, that would be great. But it's the shotgun that, of course, got nerfed instantly.
The auto shotgun.
The auto shotgun got nerfed. We know that had a broken bug with it where it would actually one-shot hunters. Like I assume it did like runners. Yes, it did like triple the. Yeah, God, I get confused. It did triple. I think it did like triple the damage it was meant to do to a runner, and it was very powerful. But then that got nerfed or changed, and in my opinion, I can definitely see it's in a good spot right now. The Devil's Breath, which is the sniper that does the most damage, it has the longest reload. That to me is a very sort of grey area, because I've been using it in games, and like this may just be down to my the game's actual mechanics, but I have actually shot at runners and the bullet's gone through them, and that might be due to just hit models not being just on point yet. Like they may need to just iron out the hit models. It did actually get a
buff in this patch as well.
Did it? I did not know about that. Please read.
It did. It's got, where is it? Oh, hold on. Is that the other sniper rifle? Ignore me. Ignore me. That's the other sniper rifle.
I would like to know what the buff that sniper rifle got.
The other sniper rifle was it's just reduced weapon spread. So I don't know if that's aiming down the sight. I assume it's hip fire.
That's probably hip fire.
Hip fire, but it's reduced weapon spread. So
no, even the. I think even the aim down spread, because every time you shoot, since it's a semi-automatic sniper, it tears the crosshair apart massively. So if you fire too fast, it'll be inaccurate. But at this rate, you can kind of fire a little bit quicker because the spread is not getting as far, or seems to recline a bit quicker.
Which is fair enough, because that sniper needed a little bit of love anyway.
So
I agree.
I think. Sorry, go on.
The only thing I have the problem with now with the Devil's Breath is, like, the only way to deal with it before was pre-shielding, wasn't it? Like, I'm pretty sure it couldn't really go through pre-shielding.
If you hit a headshot, it was. I'm almost certain it was free health. It was your 3 bars of health.
I thought it was just direct hit. It's 3 bars.
No, I think they changed it because I think I might be wrong, but from experience, I've shot runners body shot, and I swear it hasn't insta-killed them. If I get a headshot, it's definitely an insta-kill. There's no doubt about that. But
Okay,
I'm pretty sure body shots do about 2.5 or 2 bars, and then headshots do 3. But if you're shielded,
I'm not
then
too sure. But I'm only speaking from a runner side on that one because I haven't played with the sniper on Hunter. But usually I feel like I'm dying on a body shot, and the only way I can survive, especially noticing when doing keys and being outlined, is when I do a dodge roll with damage resistance on, which barely lets me survive the shot.
I will say this. You've got to have good aim to hit those shots, though.
Mm.
And if you miss, the reload is a long time. Like, the reload is an extremely long time.
The reload pretty much forces you to take reload speed perks.
Exactly.
On it.
I think.
Go on.
The only way that I feel like this is actually, because it had to be pre-shielded now, and with the MPI nerf, pre-shielding isn't really the most effective way to deal with things anymore. Because I know I'm going back to runner slightly, but with the support changes of the healing, because we haven't actually talked about the healing speed, have we?
No, we haven't.
So the healing speeds, what was it? Was it increased to 3 seconds? Let me just check.
Keep that thought, please, because there's one thing I wanted to mention as long as we were talking about the hunter weapons. Because they did a change on the assault rifle
we'll
to increase the buff on it by the damage on it by about 5%. Which, I mean, sure, the assault rifle, looking at it and having played it before, it might have needed that buff of 5%, but for some reason it feels a lot stronger in game now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It seems to do so much damage. I can't really explain it, but the only reason I could make for myself was somehow maybe they put in a wrong number, and instead of 0.05, they put in 0.5, which is 50% increase.
That's something that, of course, the devs can.
Obviously, it's not that simple, but it feels a lot stronger than the 5% on paper that the buff is supposed to be, because it hurts a lot getting hit by it now.
See, I was surprised they buffed it at all, because that was actually one of the most common weapons. The 3 common weapons was the assault rifle, the auto shotgun, and if you were very brave, the bolt action sniper. Those were the 3 weapons that were used the most. The LMG changed, fine, that needed a buff. The semi-automatic sniper needed a buff. The other shotgun, not the automatic one, kind of needs a bit of change, I think. Maybe it increased to the reload speed. But the assault rifle I thought was in a fine space. Like, it was fun. I don't know why that was changed at all, to be honest. Because you could out-damage it before the healing changes came in. If you had good aim, you could out-damage the healing pre-patch.
See, that's the thing. They said they changed it because of the runners out-healing hunters' damage, but the only place where I've seen that was against the terrible hunters we've played on the free-to-play week.
Exactly.
The ones that couldn't aim and only landed like every 3 shots out of 20 or so.
If you've got good aim, you could easily out-damage the healing.
Every good hunter we've encountered who had good aim could easily out-damage all of our efforts.
So basically, it's now even more powerful, with the healing less powerful. So this goes back to my healing. So I'll go back to the healing. So it's gone up to 3.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
In a fight, when a hunter is trying to escape, a runner is trying to escape, the reason I say that pre-shielding isn't really a thing anymore is because the only way you're going to get that healing, like one healing arrow, if you're going to get the entire duration of that healing, the only way to do it against a good hunter is let them take damage, shield them, and then heal up the damage before the shield wears out.
No.
You're only going to get 1, 2 if you're lucky, and that's if you're really lucky, or you're just against a bad hunter.
And then your teammate has to be out because you're not getting the MPI anymore.
Because you haven't got the MPI, so then keep going with that.
To help them on the chase anymore.
I don't feel like the 3.5 seconds is necessary.
Yeah.
I feel like, because you could every weapon could still, apart from maybe like the LMG, every weapon could still out damage the healing if you were skilled enough. which it should be. It should be a skilled game. Like you have to be skilled to win. Like it should be.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Like
I feel like,
and obviously, I do agree
sides.
with the fact that the hunters are supposed to out damage the efforts of heals and shields and whatnot. But
yeah, the skill should come from the dodging and like using the environment.
And
obviously,
FBI
if you're emptying your magazine with every shot hitting, you're not supposed to be able to out heal that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I can kind of agree. I mean, I think the meta right now in DeathGarden for the hunter anyway is the assault rifle, the spaz shotgun, well, not spaz shotgun, the auto shotgun,
Jasper.
then taking is that what it's called?
Jasper.
The Jasper. Then taking the reveal or mines. I'm not too sure about perks for hunters. I mean, personally, I take the reveal crates and reload speed just because I like taking the devil's breath. But I feel like that's the actual meta right now for hunter. And then, but I mean, like, I'm just trying to think what else that we need to mention, because we've got through quite a lot on this podcast so far. I mean, like, if there's anything else that you guys really feel like we need to address still, feel to bring it back up.
I think we've done quite well, to be fair.
Yeah, and most of the impressions we've gotten were from some good games against good hunters where we were pre-made and they got matched up by accidental matchmaking, but as it goes, where random
Phoenix,
people...
you're lagging. Sorry, Phoenix, you lagged a bit there. Just say what you want to say.
Soon where it goes towards where random people come together and play uncoordinated, it's all going to be difficult.
Well, I think we've done very well. I think we'll wrap up this podcast here. As I will say that none of us here are definitely going to say that we know best. We definitely don't know best for the game. We just have experienced the game quite a bit, and we're just saying what we feel could definitely make good improvements to the game. If you have any suggestions in the comments, what you want us to talk about next, otherwise we'll pick a subject for ourselves. Thank you very much for watching the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.